So I did a part one to this a few days ago, and this is definitely going to be the part two to the topic of T.I.'s son King. But I also wanted to include Boosie's son. I'm not sure what Boosie's son, what name he goes by or whatever, but either way, I was inspired to go back to the same topic because when I released that other video, I then saw a video of Boosie. I guess I don't know if he was on the phone or whatever, but it was like I was listening to it and I didn't initially like watch it, but he was going back and forth with his son, trying to get his son to not be in the streets, but his son was claiming that he was making like $1,500 a day trapping in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, or whatever, right? But as I was watching this video, it hit me. The path that T.I.'s son and Little Boosie's son is going down, it kind of reminds me of Tariq from Power. Now, if you've never saw before, I'm not really gonna go into what it's about. It's just long story short, a guy who was a criminal tried to open up a nightclub. He fell in love with and had a mistress who was like some like cop or whatever. Long story short, Tariq, his son, hated him, killed him. That's a terrible description of the show, but that's pretty much summarizing sort of key points that happen, right? But either way, Ghost is Tariq's father in the show Power, right? And despite having parents who had money and he was raised in like the Tribeca area of Manhattan, which is, a very, it's a nice affluent section of Manhattan. So basically, even though living in Manhattan, you're still like in the city. Like a place like Tribeca would be place like Tribeca would be like Manhattan's version of like the suburbs. You know what I mean? It would be Manhattan's version of the suburbs. But still, in this case, Tariq, despite being in that environment, he went out of his way to turn himself into a gangster. Now, some people would be quick to say he's not because, oh, his dad was rich, or well, his dad was well off and he grew up in a rich area. But I mean, at the end of the day, now I'm not condoning this, but at the end of the day, being a gangster really isn't about where you're from. It's really about what you do. I'm not saying that as if it's a good thing. I don't think you should be that regardless, but the point I'm trying to make is there's a lot of people living in nice neighborhoods who really still are gangsters. Ironically enough, some of the biggest gangsters are politicians, but that's a conversation for another video, I guess. But now, one aspect of Ti's son and Boosie's son that reminded me of Tariq from Power was the fact that we don't know what they went through behind closed doors, right? Even though Tariq was living in like a nice area, right? Like they were trying to send him and Raina to private school and all that. They still weren't in like a functional family. They still, you know what I mean? Their father was behind closed doors. He was still a criminal doing a bunch of dirt. Like they still had a dysfunctional family. So we can't just run and assume that, oh, these guys are lying just because they're the sons of kids of people who are allegedly rich, right? Because just because they're famous doesn't automatically mean they're rich. I'm more inclined to believe Ti is truly rich, but I have a strong feeling that Boosie really isn't. But it's neither here nor there, right? But either way, we don't know what Ti's son and Boosie's son went through. Like Ti's son in that video, in that infamous video from a few weeks ago, where they were going back and forth. Ti's son claims that a lot of what we saw on that reality show wasn't real life, and he didn't really spend much time actually living with his parents in those gated communities. He was actually spend most of his time living with his grandma, which I don't know where his grandma lived, but I guess by the way he's talking, she wasn't living in the best neighborhood, I guess. But so we don't know. It's unlikely, but at the same time we really don't know what they went through, right? And again, just because they come from a what we consider a rich background doesn't mean that they can't become people involved in the streets, right? It would be dumb, but that's still a possibility. Like I remember when I was watching Power years ago, remember I was saying to myself, I was like, why is Tariq doing this, right? Like the hood is not hereditary, but it felt like Tariq was acting as if like the hood was hereditary, as if he himself grew up in Queens, on in the same neighborhoods that Ghost was from, when in reality he was from Tribeca, right? But even and then I was thinking back to that now reference while also thinking about T.I. and Boosie son, and then I had to realize that well, even though the hood is not hereditary, being crazy is hereditary. Like if you got some sort of imbalance going on in your brain where you crazy, like that type of stuff can be passed on. And T.I. is crazy. And so is Boosie. Like these are dudes who have done a lot of dirt and have done a lot of ridiculous stuff. Like most notably in the case of Ti, Ti literally walked up to Floyd Mayweather and tried to swing on him. Like that is the most ridiculous. Now I'm not saying that's the craziest thing he's done. Obviously, he had like 70 million guns. So I mean, he's done crazier stuff. But to me, the Mayweather thing is so silly, but also so ridiculous that it showcases like how crazy some of these guys are, where you're literally trying to swing on a professional boxer, and not only a professional boxer, but a professional boxer who has 24/7 security, who probably have a license to kill people. I would imagine, right? I imagine these are probably retired police officers, right? But we also seen Boosie do crazy stuff too, like call his daughter and curse her out and threaten her and all that crazy stuff that went viral a couple weeks ago. So these same sort of tendencies and this same sort of possible chemical imbalance that could be going on or whatever mental imbalance or issues, that stuff could have maybe been passed on. You never know, right? And also just like how Tariq went out of his way to go to Queens and get plugged into the streets through Canaan, there could always be a chance that T.I. and Boosie's sons were crazy enough to, when their parents weren't paying them any mind, they could have been, venturing out into the dangerous sections of Atlanta and Baton Rouge and trying to get put on. It's very possible. Again, these gangs aren't really that hard to get into. Even if you're not from there, if you pull up even as a rich kid and just bribe your way in, or even if you don't bribe your way in, even if you like actually go out of your way to go commit crimes with them, they let pretty much anybody in, especially anybody crazy enough to try to go out of their way to get in. So I don't know. There are and then also another angle to this is Boosie and Ti may have put their sons in a position where this sort of mentality, this sort of trap street mentality is all they know, right? Because look, there's been countless studies that have come out that claim that most people will spend their entire life in whatever financial class they grew up in. Now, why is that? It's because what you're exposed to plays a big role in not only what you're most comfortable around, but also what you think is possible, right? If you grew up rich and then go broke, you'll probably be razor focused on getting back to being rich because you've already seen what it's like. So it's all you know, and you already seen what the other side of the fence is like. So you realize that that side's better. Plus, if you grew up rich and, in a better situation, if you just happen to go broke, there's still a chance you probably still know people from that background who were also, in a network of people who were rich or, rich or at least well off. who could hook you up with different opportunities in one way or another to get back into that class. Now, why do I bring this up? I bring this up to make the point that even though these kids, even though Ti and Boosie's kids allegedly grew up in gated communities with rich parents, they still might have been surrounded by a bunch of street people, that the type of like street dudes that Ti and Boosie kept in their entourage. There's a chance there's a chance that they still might have been surrounded by that. And not to mention that their whole life, the only thing they've seen you do is profit off of selling a street image and glorifying a street image and glorifying the trap. I mean, it shouldn't be that surprising that that may be in their eyes the only way to get it done if that's all they really know. I mean, like, come on, man. Like, they literally opened up a trap museum in Atlanta. Like, come on, they opened up a trap museum. Despite these guys being far removed from these neighborhoods, they've still made so much money to this day selling that image of those impoverished neighborhoods and making it seem like it's cool to be there. So you can't be too surprised that your kids may also want to just carry the torch for that. Like, it just be like that sometimes. I'm not saying it's right, but things can unfold like that sometimes. You know, when you look at something like basketball, right? Since people love comparing, hip hop and rap to basketball, what have you been seeing the past 15 years? You've been seeing waves and waves and waves of kids who were of guys who were kids of former basketball players get into the league. You're not seeing that much like underdog stories in the NBA anymore like you used to. What you're seeing more than anything is, oh man, this person was the son of this person. This person was the son of that person. This person was the brother of this person. LeBron's sons are gonna be in the NBA before you know it. D Wade has one of his sons was in like the G League. Melo's son is like about to be like college age. He's gonna start playing basketball in college. He about to be in the NBA. Steph Curry and Seth Curry, their father was in the NBA. Klay Thompson, his father was in the NBA. Like, there's when you look around, more and more and more of these guys are just the kids of people who are already plugged into that network. So who knows? Maybe from Ti and Boosie's son's perspective, they feel like they can carry the torch for like the whole trap image. Again, I'm not saying it's right, but I'm just more I started to look at this situation, you start looking at it from different angles and seeing all the ways where this could have gone wrong. But either way, man, I really don't have much else to say. I guess it's just a weird situation, but yeah, definitely that Ti and Boosie's son remind me of Tariq from Power. Now, hopefully for them, they don't end up getting involved in the same type of stuff Tariq ended up getting involved in. Because in real life, once you start going down that path, it's gonna be way more of a hassle to get out of it. Like Boosie's son was bragging about how he was making $1,500 a day trapping, which obviously for the average person, $1,500 a day is a lot of money. But at the same time, if you get caught up in a RICO case, like a good lawyer is probably gonna want more or less $500 an hour, and a great lawyer is probably gonna want 1,500 an hour. You never know, right? So that 1,500 a day, while it's a lot, it ain't gonna go that far once you get picked up by the feds. But I don't know, man. Let me know if you made it this far in the video. Let me know. Also, I appreciate it if you made it this far in the video. And also, I want y'all to let me know in the comment section below, what do you think about Ti's son and Boosie's son? Do you think that maybe there really is more to the story that we need to hear them out on? Do you think that this is all their father's fault? Or do you think that they're just bored rich kids who want to rebel. I don't know. It could be anything, right? So let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below.